I just wish that, it's very easy to find negativity if you're looking for it right now, but it's equally easy to find positivity. Nobody's talking about that.
That's very true. You find what you're looking for, right? Like in every case, you can look at the same situation, and that's what that's to me how I identify my real friends is we can look at the same situation and see something similar, and I'm like, oh, yeah,
Makes
that's
sense.
cool.
Yep.
Because that shared perspective of like, oh, we can see the positive in this, and how you see something changes how you react to it. It changes like the internal composition of what you see. If you're attached to it, if you're invested, if you're swallowed up in the drama of it, you're going to have all of those responses: materialist, reductionist, all the cortisol, all the stress, all the neurotransmitters firing like But if you just look at it like, oh, isn't that interesting?
And I have a lot of empathy. I can imagine like a lot of people sitting in the audience. Like, for me, it's practical positivity, right? So for me, where this conversation goes is like, for a lot of people, they can be sitting here and being like, well, it's easy for you to say. Like, people go immediately to your current, right? And I just don't see it that way. I really genuinely believe that it's a complete game of who you spend time with and what's pumping into your ears. And so that has led me down a path of really trying to have conversations with people around limiting time with negativity. And sometimes that's hard because a lot of times that might be your mother and father or your best friend for the last 30 years. But I've been fascinated by people changing just by changing who they spend time with and what they listen to.
Yeah, one of the things we were sharing today on the podcast is you mentioned, those people who might be those more negative forces. And you had some really pragmatic advice on how to handle, how do you handle those situations?
Yeah, I think people get crazy. They hear something like this, like, yeah, fuck it, I'm never talking to my mom again. And I think, that's not necessarily what I'm saying. I think there is a process. But I do think, we were talking about friends, and I do think a lot of times, you sometimes wake up, especially in your kind of call it 17 to 34-year-old world, and you kind of look around and you're like, fuck, I'm looking for something a little bit different here, and this group of friends is about this, and that's fine. And how do you make that transition? I think some people get hyped off a 1-minute Gary Vee video and try to leave their friends behind. I'm trying to context that with, I'm like, you don't need to go that serious. I think you should have that conversation with your friends about, hey, I'm looking to mix this up and hanging out all day and smoking weed and playing Fortnite's rad and all, but 24/7, I want to mix it up. And so I think that, I think that first you have that conversation with your homies and say, look, I'm looking to do this. A third of them are gonna be like, cool, me too, and they were just waiting for somebody to say something. And then another third you might be able to convince over time in the process. And then another third might just been great friends for a certain part of your time. And it's okay to talk to them, once every month or once every week instead of 15 times a day. And so I think people need to be thoughtful about that process. But I do think it is, that saying is so real. You gotta really look around who you're spending time with. It is unbelievable to me watching employees in my company spend time in certain divisions and then get transferred. I mean, if they get transferred to my team, it's a complete brain twist of work ethic and mindset, things of that nature. But even different teams with positive leaders, you can just see it. And I think you can talk all day long about hey, be happier or see it better, and then people walk out of a theater and you're like, how?